At the start of the story, a man named Stephen Grant is shown. He wakes up in the morning and separates the chains from his feet. Later he removes the tape from his door. And then calls his mother while feeding his fish. He goes for his job as he works in a museum. A girl who was his colleague also likes and asks him to go to the restaurant with him on Friday night. Stephen, whenever leaves work, goes to a place to talk to a living statue. Stephen tells him that whenever he sleeps at night, he wakes up in another place. He tells him that that's why he tries staying awake the whole night. He is worried that he has to do something about it, otherwise his colleagues will stop being friends with him if they find out about him. Stephen goes back home, tapes the door, and chains his feet again while solving the Rubik's Cube so he can stay awake. And since he is awake, he starts reading about an Egyptian deity that lived thousands of years ago. While reading, he unexpectedly falls asleep, and when he wakes up, he is in the middle of nowhere. While he tries getting up, he hears a voice telling him to go back to sleep, and Stephen gets scared while hearing all this. Because he can only hear a voice and can't see anyone. This is when he feels something in his pocket. He takes it out and it's something weird. Just when we see that behind him, someone is approaching him, that's the Egyptian deity Khonshu. When he turns around, some people start firing at him and he runs from there, reaching a city. When he approaches Arthur has a cult-like following and worships the deity Ammit. People gather around him as he decides the fate of the people. Where he holds their hands, looks at their fate, and decides that since they have done or will do sins in life, they need to sacrifice their soul to Ammit, and he ends up taking their lives. In the crowd, Arthur sees Stephen and tells him to give him what he has in his pocket, and Arthur calls it a scarab. While Stephen wants to go to give it to him, the voice in his head tells him not to and freezes his body. This is when we see that Stephen can't control his body or his actions. In the ambush, Stephen closes his eyes, and when he opens them, everyone around him is dead. Stephen is unable to understand what is going on right when the voice in his head tells him to run. Stephen gets into a van and starts driving him where Harrow's men are following him. They attack him and get into a fight where Stephen's eyes close again and everybody around him dies. Just when we see that in the ambush, he crashes the truck and he wakes up his bed. Stephen realized that it was all a dream and gets very happy. He removes his chains, takes off the tape from the door, and realizes that he has a date today. He dresses up and goes to the restaurant where he is supposed to meet his friend. While he's at the restaurant, hours pass and his friend doesn't show up. This is when he calls her and tells her that he is waiting for her as they had a date tonight. She tells him that the date was 2 days ago. She came there, sat alone, ate alone, and went back home. Stephen is confused when he finds out that today is Sunday and not Friday. Stephen sadly goes back home and starts eating the chocolates that he bought for her just when he notices a secret place in his apartment. He finds a set of keys and a phone in there which had a lot of missed calls, someone named Layla. He goes through the phone just when Layla calls him again and asks him where he is, but instead of calling him Stephen, she calls him Mark. Stephen is confused and tells her that it's Mark, not Stephen. Layla disconnects the call and Stephen goes to the washroom. Stephen sees his reflection in the mirror that's talking to him, telling him to stop looking for clues. Stephen gets scared and runs from his own apartment. And while running through the corridor, he finds Khonshu again, which frightens him much more. Stephen then goes back to the museum where he sees Harrow again. Stephen is confused that he saw this man in his dream. How did he find him? Harrow tells him that he is here to help. He wants to end problems for Stephen. Just like in the dream, Harrow then takes out his stick and puts it between Stephen's hands, deciding his fate. This is when he realized that Stephen is conflicted and the judgment cannot be made. Stephen takes his hand off and goes away. Later at night, when he leaves the museum, he hears the sound of a creature. When he turns back, he sees a jackal-like figure following him. He starts running when he hears Harrow's voice, telling him to return him the scarab, and he will let Stephen live. Stephen, while running from the animal, hides in the bathroom where he sees himself in the reflection again. The reflection this time tells him not to be afraid of him and submit his body so he can protect them both. Since Stephen is so scared, he lets the other guy take control, which is when we see that Stephen transforms into a moon knight. That kills the jackal. After this, Stephen wakes up from his sleep, scared and confused again about what just happened. His foot is still chained to the bed. Stephen goes to the museum where the area is sealed, and the bathroom is broken. Stephen goes to the CCTV room where he asks that he wants to see the recording from last. He sees that Stephen is running crazily, however, nothing like a jackal can be seen. However, he seems himself in the footage, but that guy seems nothing like Stephen. Stephen's boss, thinking that Stephen is mentally unstable, fires him and recommends a psychiatrist. Stephen goes back to the statue figure and starts talking to him, telling him about the phone and the key that he found in his apartment. This is when he realized that should go and check out the locker that the key belongs to. He goes to the lockers and asks the receptionist if he has any locker under the name Stephen or Mark. The receptionist greets him as Mark and meets him as he comes here often. The receptionist then takes him to the locker. There Stephen finds a bag with a lot of money along with a gun and the scarab that Harrow was after. He also finds the passport that has the name Mark on it. Steen in confusion presses the scarab and it starts flying. Since Stephen is an expert in Egyptian mythology, he realizes that this is a compass. Just when he is exploring all this, he sees his reflection there. Stephen tells him that he was just waiting for him and asks him who he is. When the reflection responds that he is a servant to the Egyptian deity and is named Mark. Mark tells Stephen to go back to sleep and submit the body to him since he needs it for a much more important task. Stephen refuses and tells him that he won't allow it since his body is used for so many murders and illegal activities. This is when Stephen leaves from there and sees Khonshu again, who is following him. Scared, Stephen runs out of the building where he finds a girl in the scooter who asks him where he was for all this time. Stephen asks her how she knows him when she responds to him and asks, "Don't you know me, Mark? I am your wife, Layla." Stephen gets confused after hearing this and tells her to go back home with him without revealing his true identity. They both go to Stephen's place where he is about to tell Layla, but Mark stops him and tells him that if he tells her, the other people will kill her. While Stephen is struggling with all this in his head, Layla pushes him and checks his bag where she finds the scarab. She asks him, "Why you are hiding this from me when we spent years together searching for it? And why is he acting like he lost his memory?" Stephen tells her that she can keep the scarab if she wants, but he is not lying, he really is Stephen and he does not know who Mark is. This is when they hear a knock on the door. It's the police and they take Stephen with him while Layla hides outside the apartment. Turns out that these police officers were not officers at all, instead, they were Harrow's men. Harrow then takes Stephen for a walk and eats with him when he tells Mark that he has been an avatar of Khonshu as well. Before Stephen was. Harrow believes that Khonshu's way of justice is wrong and useless while Amit does the right thing. Stephen responds that he cannot trust a deity that looks like an alligator and no one should believe it. This is when Harrow's men get up to kill Stephen. Layla gets there with the scarab and saves Stephen. They run away from Harrow's men when Harrow summons the jackal again to kill Stephen. Layla tells him to wear the suit, to which he asks what suit. He sees in the reflection as well where Mark is telling him to submit the body so he can save them both. Stephen, instead of doing that, jumps off of the building, and when he gets down he has a different suit now. And under it is Stephen, not Mark. Steen tries to fight the jackal in hopes that he will be able to defeat it but is unable to do so. This is when Mark asks him to give the body back to him. Stephen agrees this time, and he turns into a moon knight and kills the creature. During this fight, the scarab is lost and Harrow finds it and keeps it now. Mark tells Stephen that he will not get his body back now until his tasks are done. Stephen tells him to give it back because Mark does all the killing from it. This is when Khonshu arrives and tells Mark to complete his task. When Mark refuses it, Khonshu tells him that if Mark doesn't do it, he will choose another servant. And the other servant will be Layla. This reveals that this was the reason Mark was hiding from her, because he knew about it. Mark decides that he will not let Layla get into it and asks Khonshu what he needs to do. The next scene shows that Mark is in Egypt now along with his wife Layla. Meanwhile, Harrow is searching for Amit's tomb to revive her. Harrow's men chase Mark and are fighting with him. While Mark kills everyone, he leaves one man whom he wants to interrogate, but that man, without saying anything, cuts off his rope and dies. This is when Stephen asks Khonshu what they should do when Khonshu puts an eclipse on the moon and summons a meeting among other avatars of the Egyptian deities. This is where we see Harrow as well. Everyone asks to why they have been summoned today. This is when Mark tells them to punish Harrow since he is trying to revive Ammit. Harrow denies doing any such thing. And the avatars ask Mark for any proof he has. Since Mark has no proof, they warn Khonshu one last time and tells him to beware of his actions and not to change the skies and moon. If he does it again, he will be punished. They let Harrow go without any consequence. This is when an avatar pulls Mark to the side and tells him that the only way to stop Harrow now is to destroy his statue. But no one knows the location of the statue except a warrior named Sinfo, so Mark needs to find his tomb. While Mark is looking for it in the market, Layla finds him as well. Mark tries to avoid her since he does not want to put her life in danger, but she claims that knows where the tomb is. Mark has no option except to rely on her, and she takes him to one of her old friends who is a collector of ancient things. While this new friend of Layla takes them to the tomb, they open it and try reading the scripture written on it. Mark takes Stephen's help in understanding it since Stephen is an expert in this. This is when Harrow and his men come along and attack them. This is when we see an amazing fight sequence between both parties and Mark kills all of Harrow's men. Harrow comes there only to destroy the mummy and succeeds in doing so. After this, Layla and Mark try to put together a map that they found in the tomb. The map turns out to be in the shape of a star. But it's 2,000 years old. Since stars change their positions every day, they can't navigate it. This is when Khonshu steps in and tells Stephen to ask Mark to turn him back in his current form once all of it is over. Since Khonshu is going to turn the sky back around 2,000 years. When Khonshu changes the sky, the other avatars meet and decide to stone Khonshu. When it's all done, Khonshu is stoned, leaving Stephen and Layla alone now. The next day, Stephen and Layla drive to the revealed location. Mark talks to Stephen through the mirror and tells him to submit the body back since he alone won't be able to fight them all. When they both reach the tomb of Ammit, they see that Harrow and his men have already entered the tomb. Stephen is very excited to go inside since he has a passion for archaeology and ancient Egyptian knowledge. They both go inside and start finding their way through. This is when they see a tall and strong creature killing something. Stephen and Layla are unable to hide from him and trying to save their lives, they get separated. When initially the creature attacks Stephen, but later he attacks Layla. Layla somehow defeats him and throws him into the pit. When she gets up, she sees Harrow on the other side of the pit, asking Layla that if she knows that Mark killed her father. On the other hand, we see that Stephen has found Ammit's body and he opens the box where Ammit's mummy is lying. Just when he takes out the stoned Ammit, Layla gets there and asks Mark to come out and explain why he killed her father. This is when they get into an ambush and Layla gets aggressive. Harrow also enters the scene. Harrow asks Stephen to hand him over the stoned Ammit. When Stephen refuses, he shoots Stephen, ending up his life. Layla is in the corner watching all of this while Harrow kills him, takes the stoned Ammit, and goes out. The scene is now moved to an asylum, where Mark is a mentally challenged patient and Harrow is his doctor. Harrow tells him that the stories that he keeps telling the doctor about Khonshu and Stephen are fascinating but not real. Mark is stunned and confused because he remembers Harrow killing him. Mark tries to get up and run from there and hides in a room where he sees another box that's moving and making noise. The box opens and it's Stephen. Again confused about what was going on. Mark and Stephen are very happy to see each other just when we see they open a door and see a deity who looks like a hippopotamus by the name of Twerret. Twerret tells them they have died and this is a place in their heads before going to heaven or ending their conscience completely. Mark tries to escape from there. When he opens the door to go outside, he sees that he is on a ship that's running the sand. Twerret tells them that it's time to weigh their heart, and if they are lighter than a feather, they will be taken to the heavens, otherwise, they will be thrown in the sand. When she puts the hearts on the weight scale, she's unable to balance it. Revealing that there are some memories that Stephen and Mark don't remember, she tells them to go back inside and relearn them. Mark and Stephen are now back in the asylum, where they decide to look into each other's memories. Stephen visits Mark's memories where they see the people that Mark has killed. Upon asking, Mark tells him that he only kills the people who have committed crimes. Stephen also sees two little kids running in a room and he follows them. He finds out that these kids are Mark and his little brother who when were little went into a cave to play, where Mark survives but his little brother dies. Mark's mother blames him for his brother's death and there was nothing that Mark could do about it. It is revealed that Mark's mother tortured him and abused him a lot from childhood. This is why Mark developed a personality by the name of Stephen who was interested in archaeology. Whenever Mark's mother was about to abuse him, he would turn into Stephen, who was a soft and kind person. This scene shows how mentally unstable Mark was in childhood, and used Stephen as a scapegoat to run away from his fears. This is a big reveal to Stephen, knowing that he is a personality created by Mark, instead of being a real person. The scene is then shifted to Egypt now, where Stephen sees a crew that has been attacked and a lot of people have been killed. Among these dead bodies, he sees Layla's father as well, who is lying there dead. Stephen walks into a building where he finds himself injured and going to take his life when he hears a voice of Khonshu telling him he can save Stephen's life, but he has to become his servant, his avatar. Stephen agrees and becomes the Moon Knight. The scene has now shifted back to the boat, where now their hearts are balanced, but some mysterious creatures attack their boat, pushing Stephen off of it and turning him into stone. Mark has now entered paradise, but he doesn't want to be there and he wants to go back to save Stephen. Mark does that, which shows how pure their heart is, allowing them to go back to their world and live their lives. We then see Mark getting up in the tomb right where he was killed, recovered, and Stephen and Mark are in harmony now. We also see that while all of this was happening, Harrow has gone to the pyramid to release Ammit, where the other avatars are there to stop him, since now they know what Harrow is trying to do. They engage in a fight, but no one is able to defeat Harrow and he releases Ammit in her true form. Ammit promises Harrow that his deeds will be rewarded. While Layla is also there trying to save people, she gets to the stoned Khonshu and releases him. Khonshu asks her if she wants to be her slave, but she refuses. This is when we see another deity asking her about it and Layla says yes. This deity is Tueret and Layla is her avatar now. With now Ammit released, Harrow is taking the souls of all the sinners and submitting them to Ammit, making her stronger than ever and bigger than ever. While this is happening, Khonshu reunites with Moon Knight, who makes a deal that they will help Khonshu, but after this, he will set them free. We then see a fight sequence between Ammit and Khonshu as well as Harrow and Moon Knight, where the dark sides are winning. Moon Knight is unable to defeat Harrow just when we see that his eyes close, and Harrow is badly injured. Both Stephen and Mark are unaware of what just happened. Khonshu then defeats Ammit and traps her soul in Harrow, making him mentally unstable. When Moon Knight decides to kill him, Khonshu stops him, telling him that they can't do it, otherwise they will be the bad guys. They decide to move him to the asylum. In the post-credit scene, we see that Khonshu is picking Harrow up at the asylum, where Mark turns and kill Harrow, revealing that there were not only Stephen and Mark living inside his head, there were other personalities as well. Same personality that defeat Harrow in the first place as well.